Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Chair of the Board, Lucie Lapovsky.
Thank you. I hope you all have enjoyed your dinner and are anxiously awaiting the chocolate souffle. We figured that will keep you all here no matter what. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Aine Duggan, our president, to all of you. Aine was unanimously selected by the board this fall after a lengthy national search. She comes to us with a deep understanding of the power of using research to move important social agendas forward, a depth of experience dealing with issues related to equality and economic security for people of all stripes, and especially for women and children, and a commitment to working collaboratively with all our partners. Aine has tremendous energy, drive, initiative, and we all are extremely excited to see where she's going to take the National Council for Research on Women in the next many years. Aine?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lucie, for that wonderful introduction and really for your long-standing commitment to the Council. Suffice to say, Lucie's guidance over the past 3 months has been invaluable to me. And in fact, I'd like to thank the entire board of the National Council for Research on Women, who all put in so much time and energy, and after tonight they'll be putting in a full day tomorrow. So we look forward to seeing all of you again in less than 24 hours. I also want to thank Soledad O'Brien for leading us in a very entertaining conversation this evening. And congratulations to Bob, Lisa, and Sue, our honorees. And thank you, John, for joining in the festivities and the conversation. You're a good sport, and we really enjoyed your conversation. I also want to thank the women and men who made it possible for us to have this panel this evening. So Jennifer, Cara, Melinda, and Jonathan, thank you so much for helping us to put this panel together. We really appreciate your help. And of course, my predecessors, it's a real honor for me to be able to share this room and evening with the 3 past presidents of the Council. So Linda, congratulations on your 16 years. It's been a joy to work with you and to be able to spend time with you as you pass the torch. To Mary Ellen, who's joined us all the way from New Mexico, and of course to Mariam Chamberlain. It really is a joy to spend the evening with you. Thank you. So, earlier this afternoon we had the forum in which we discussed a number of different issues, and when I came on board at the Council, there was a lot of conversation and excitement about 2 threads of work that the Council is doing. One is building leadership across sectors for women, and the second is building economic security for low-income women. And it seemed to me, having come from a long history of working in poverty organizations and working with low-income women, that those 2 threads were very much connected. And so this afternoon at our panel, we had a very fruitful discussion about how those threads are connected and how women's leadership can indeed build economic security for low-income women, or some of the challenges to that work. And it's interesting, if you look at the history of the women's movement, that after all of this time, we still have record levels of poverty among women. One of the most dangerous places, if you consider statistics on child abuse and violence and gun violence in particular, one of the most dangerous places for girls and women is still in their own home, right? And then we still have this dearth of leadership at the top. It's a fairly grim picture. You might even say too grim for an occasion like this. You might be saying to yourself, gosh, that's a real downer of a speech altogether, right? But the thing is, I don't see it as being that dismal, because when I look at those numbers, I don't think of those numbers as being something to sort of, stand around the hole and muse and wonder at the depth of the hole. I look at those numbers and I think, there's possibility here, right? There's real need to change that picture. And there's a lot of people that you can work with to change that picture. I believe it's possible to change it. And when I look out across this room, when I look out across this room, I know that all of you think the same thing. Now, I'm not just saying it because of tonight. I'm saying it because, in the spirit of the National Council for Research on Women, I have a little evidence. Having spent the last few months going around and meeting with our corporate circle partners and with our member centres, there's about 50 organisations and individuals that I've met with so far, and I have a long ways to go, having only covered 4 states. I know that you all believe that change is possible and that you're all dedicated to it. And so, one thing that we do have to take on is that the paths that we're taking to our end goal look a little different, right? Some of us are doing it by building women's leadership in corporate America, getting more women into the C-suite. Some of us are doing it by working on the front lines of poverty organizations, and some of us are doing it by building a march or a rally or an advocacy day on Capitol Hill. And after the end of those long days, I suppose we don't always have the bandwidth left to appreciate each other's roles and perspectives, and we can sort of differ over what the right way to gender equity is, that one road to gender equity, that 51% that we're all striving after. I know earlier we said 50%, but we are 51%, so why not go for that extra one? Now, I don't have the silver bullet on fixing the fragmentation. I wouldn't claim to have that yet. What I can offer you is something really simple, and that is that, for me, the idea of one road is not so very natural. And I attribute that largely to having grown up in a crossroads. And I mean literally a rural T-crossing in rural Ireland. And that was very exciting. Now you may say, what's so exciting about that? Well, what I can tell you is that when you grow up in what I would consider a bog on a hill in the middle of nowhere, and the most exciting thing you can do, or let's just say the height of teenage delinquency, is to turn the road signs backwards and sideways to confuse the American tourists. So if you've ever gotten lost driving in Ireland, now you know why. But taking those different roads, right? And I had a dad who really sort of appreciated taking different routes to the house and back. One of the routes was historical. There was no civilization, no shops along the way, but there were a lot of monuments and historical areas, so there was good education. One of the other routes had lots of shops, so there was always the promise of a stop for sweets, or to translate, candy. And the other route had relatives, so there was the promise of stopping for a conversation and a cup of tea, right? There was something about each of the routes that was interesting. And I would say that it was the balance, the mixing back and forth of the routes that made life exciting for us as kids. And so when I look at this room, I see the different routes to the goal we're all trying to reach. And I don't think it's necessarily important that we necessarily go down each other's routes. What I do think is important is that we have a place where those routes meet. And I think that's something that the Council can provide. We are the nexus, right? We are the fire starter. We are the place where you stop to get fuel. Because it's a two-way street, each one of those routes, and back and forth. We can send the research to you, and we can bring information back from you to inspire new research, because at our heart, at our core, are our academic centres. And it is because they are at our heart and our core that we have the power to be able to help all of you and to be able to work with all of you. So I see us as doing more of that in the future. I see us as building out even more tentacles in more sectors, because I think that if we have more sectors working with the same research, it will actually help all of us to get to that one goal of 51%. And I think that that spirit is in this room tonight. And for my money, I would say that's true leadership. This room represents that leadership. And in the spirit of tonight, and in the spirit of leadership, it's my absolute honor to be the person who gets to introduce the next segment of the evening, the fun segment of the evening. And it is such a pleasure for me to have had the opportunity to work with our co-chairs for the past 3 months, Deborah Larkin and Kathleen Lundquist, two people who know what leadership is inside and out, and without whom I don't think it's any exaggeration to say tonight would not have been possible. So thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Kathleen. and I would like to welcome them to the stage to introduce the next segment of the evening. And as they are joining me, if you'll indulge me for one final point, there is another group of people without whom tonight wouldn't have been possible, and frankly, without whom every day and night at the Council wouldn't be possible. So I just want to thank the very, very small, the very, very dynamic, and the absolutely fun and entertaining group to work with. To the Council staff, interns and volunteers, thank you for everything that you do every day.
Well, those were some terrific words. I liked the metaphor about roots, as well as the metaphor spelling it both ways, R-O-U-T-E-S and R-O-O-T-S, because it's kind of what we're talking about today, those roots.